Before the kingdoms of Europe rose in glory, before Africa was carved by foreign hands, there stood a city so advanced, so magnificent, that explorers called it the greatest city ever built by African hands. A city surrounded by walls longer than China's Great Wall. A people whose art rivaled the masters of Renaissance Europe. And an empire ruled not by fear, but by divine authority, sacred tradition, and unmatched skill. This is the story of Benin, the empire of bronze and power. A civilization that shone in the heart of West Africa, where the Oba, the king, was seen as both ruler and god. A people who transformed metal into memory, and whose legacy still echoes across the world today. This is the Benin Empire, masters of bronze and power. Long before Benin became an empire, it was a small collection of villages deep in the tropical forests of what is now southern Nigeria. They called it Igo de Magodo, and its people, the Edo, were organized under chiefs known as Ajisos, rulers of the sky. For centuries, they ruled wisely, until internal conflict and power struggles tore the land apart. In the 12th century, the Edo people sought help from a distant prince, Oramian of Ile-Ife, the legendary Yoruba kingdom. Oramian came, united the people, and fathered a son, Yuka who became the first Oba of Benin. Under Yuka's rule, a new dynasty was born, one that would last for over 6 centuries. Benin was no longer a cluster of villages. It was a rising kingdom built on order, craftsmanship, and divine kingship. The great kings, every empire has its golden age. For Benin, it came under the reign of Oba Uwere the Great in the 15th century. Uwere was a visionary, warrior, builder, and magician. He expanded Benin's borders through war and diplomacy, transforming it into one of Africa's most powerful states. Under his leadership, the capital city of Benin City became an architectural marvel, with wide streets, moats, and walls stretching for miles. Uwere restructured society, dividing the kingdom into provinces governed by loyal chiefs. He established laws, festivals, and rituals that strengthened the Oba's divine authority. He also opened trade routes with neighboring regions, and later with visitors from across the sea. After Uwere came a line of remarkable Obas, Oba Ozoliwa, the Conqueror, and Oba Esigi, who led Benin into its golden age of diplomacy. Esigi was not just a warrior, he was a scholar and diplomat. He spoke with the Portuguese, established trade in ivory, pepper, and bronze, and introduced the Queen Mother title, the Ioba, immortalized in bronze masks of regal beauty. Benin's kings ruled not only with power, but with art, tradition, and divine wisdom. Masters of bronze. If power built the Benin Empire, art preserved its soul. The artisans of Benin, known as the Iganaramwin, were masters of the lost wax casting technique, a method that turned molten metal into immortal art. They carved stories of kings, battles, and deities into bronze plaques that once covered the walls of the royal palace. Each piece was not mere decoration, it was history. Every detail, every line, every symbol carried meaning. The coral beads signified royalty. The leopards symbolized strength and authority. And the Oba, always at the center, represented divine power and eternal continuity. European explorers who saw these bronzes for the first time were stunned. The craftsmanship rivaled that of Europe's finest. Yet these works came from a civilization Europe had never imagined capable of such sophistication. The Benin bronzes became the empire's heartbeat, proof of African genius and artistic mastery that has stood the test of time. Benin was more than art, it was order. At its heart stood the Oba, divine and untouchable, surrounded by chiefs and priests who governed with discipline and structure. The guild system kept society organized. Every craft, from blacksmithing to ivory carving, had its own guild loyal to the throne. Benin's army was feared across West Africa. Its soldiers, armed with spears and later with guns acquired from European traders, protected the empire's borders and secured trade routes. The empire's wealth came from trade, ivory, coral, pepper, and slaves, exchanged with the Portuguese from the late 1400s onward. But Benin was never conquered or dominated by these foreigners. It traded on its own terms. While Europe was just awakening to the Renaissance, Benin had already built a sophisticated urban society with governance, infrastructure, and a deep sense of spirituality. Benin City itself was described by early explorers as a city of broad streets, straight and long, lined with beautiful houses made of red earth and wood. A city planned centuries before modern urban design even existed in Europe. The fall. But even the mightiest kingdoms fall. By the late 19th century, European imperial ambition turned from trade to conquest. In 1897, after a diplomatic misunderstanding and a deadly ambush, British forces launched the Benin Punitive Expedition, a brutal invasion that destroyed the city and ended the empire. Benin City was burned to ashes. The Oba, Oven Ramwin Nugbasai, was exiled, and thousands of sacred bronzes, ivories, and treasures were looted, scattered to museums across Europe and America. What took centuries to build was shattered in days. But even in ruin, the spirit of Benin did not die. Today, the story of Benin is being retold, not as tragedy, but as triumph. The descendants of the Oba still live, still rule symbolically, and still keep the traditions alive in modern-day Edo State, Nigeria. Across the world, museums are being pressured to return the Benin bronzes, symbols of stolen heritage now finding their way home. Benin's art continues to inspire, its story continues to empower, and its spirit continues to rise, like bronze, unbroken by fire or time. The Benin Empire was not just a chapter in African history, it was a masterpiece of human civilization, a reminder that Africa's greatness did not begin with colonization. It began with kingdoms like Benin, where bronze became memory and power became art. This was the Benin Empire, masters of bronze and power.